What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the Purple and Gold Bars Show. I am your host, Supreme Overlord, aka Mr. AI Man 3000, aka Mr. in Purple and Gold at your service. Guys, sorry for the late start. I've been trying to mess with Streamlabs here, and it is dual output something. I don't know. There's a whole bunch of added lives that I just noticed got added to the whole thing, but it is what it is. Hold on a sec, man. This is so wild. What is going on here? Sorry about that, guys. But anyways, we got a full show for you guys today. I know this last week and up until today I've been swamped at work, not to mention coming off of getting sick. It's been a rough couple weeks, but we push on. We're trying to get back at it today because it's Thanksgiving. I don't have any clients. Nobody's traveling right now, so I don't have to be working. So we're going to take advantage of the whole day. We're going to try to give you guys a full day of content, starting with today's live here, talking about the Thanksgiving games. We're going to go over the Thanksgiving games. We're going to go over, and we're going to talk a little bit about JJ McCarthy and Max Brosmer in that situation. We're going to go over our weekly picks, and then we're going to finish off with a live recalculation of our power rankings. Hopefully we can get this all sorted out. I do apologize. I had to switch over to StreamYard because Streamlabs was just not doing it right now. So hopefully you guys stick around here. We're going to get through this first segment we're going to call, where we're going to talk about the 3 Thanksgiving games, give a quick prediction before they start here, and then we'll move through it all. But before we do that, ladies and gentlemen, let's get the intro started. Hey, thank you so much for joining me again. We are on the road to 500 subscribers, and we're just a couple of days away before we start our t-shirt giveaway. So after our live finishes, make sure to leave a comment, make sure to like and subscribe, because if you're subscribed and you leave a comment on any video in the month of December, you will be entered in a draw to get yourself a Purple and Gold Bars t-shirt. Sorry about that. My little man gets a little crazy when somebody opens the door or he thinks there's a threat. So let's get into it, guys. We have to get right into it. So let's start with these 3 Thanksgiving Day games. I got a couple of notes here. Let me get them up here. There we go. Let's start with the Lions versus the Packers. This is a little bit of an interesting game. You got 2 flawed teams in the NFC North. Actually, the entire NFC North is a bit flawed in different ways, completely different ways than everybody else, which is kind of refreshing, kind of interesting, kind of fun when it comes to the narratives and whatnot. So it is going to be a fun game today. We got a Packers team where the offense is a little bit muted ever since the loss of Tucker Kraft. Oh my God, I have so much stuff. Anyways, either way, even their superstar tight end, ever since he went out with an ACL injury, the team has a little bit lost a little bit on offense. We've seen them struggle quite a bit, and we've also seen them put some things together here and there. So, and then they got their defense, which has been really bad at times as well as really good at times. So it's a little bit of a mixed bag of what you could potentially get from the Green Bay Packers. On the opposite side, the Detroit Lions are looking very much like the same team. They have some great things going for them, but they also have a bunch of injuries, and their offense has been a little bit muted here at times. They've been discombobulated. 1 week they're hailing Dan Campbell as the future greatest play caller in the league, and then a week later they're acting like, "Hey, what are we doing here? We need to get somebody who actually knows." So it's a bit of a weird situation there for the Detroit Lions. Their offense has been up and down this year, even though they are known to be a bit of a juggernaut, right? So it is what it is, and that's just what happens when adversity hits good teams. Things just don't always go to plan. On top of that, we're looking at their defense, which normally is pretty decent, but has been just stacked with injuries. At one point, they had basically everybody in their secondary was a backup or a third string player or even a practice squad guy that was brought up. So it's been a bit of a roller coaster ride for these Detroit Lions. So today's going to be a big battle in the NFC North. It's going to be at Soldier Field. I think this is a little bit of a coin flip. I know some people are saying whoever wins this game is going to be the team that takes over and wins the NFC North. It's going to be a big game, which means potentially, if you go by the storylines, it's going to be a massive implications going forward here. Now, I think that the strength for both teams are slightly different, right? So I think the strength for the Packers in the last couple of weeks is going to be more their defense over their offense, even though we know that at times their offense can look really, really good. And then when we look at the Detroit Lions, I think their massive strength or their biggest strength is their offense, because even though it has been a little bit muted at times this season, it is still their bread and butter. Their defense is on top of that has been pretty banged up. So it definitely hasn't been the defense that we've seen in the last couple of years. So a classic defense versus offense situation. The Packers are going to be coming in with the offense, but both of their opposite sides of the football. So with the Packers, their offense, and with the Lions, their defense, have been definitely serviceable at times, right? So it could very well much be one of these classic, all-time classic games where both teams come elevate and have great offenses and defenses and make it a back and forth. Now, it's kind of an interesting situation because I don't think the Detroit Lions want to make it a big game, because as soon as that happens, big game Goff shows up. We saw just a 3-point lead against the Eagles totally make him crumble into big game Goff and not be able to pull out a win, because he's just not capable of putting on the cape. That's just who he is. It's okay thing for it to be that way. He is this generation's Phillip Rivers. So it's going to be interesting to see how this game plays out. Now, I think that as a result of that, I don't know if we're going to get the total ceiling on this, where both teams are just going to come out and look like world beaters, and it's just going to be a shootout back and forth, and whoever kind of comes out on top at the end, it takes over. I think it's going to be a little bit, and I don't think it's going to be a crazy defensive game where we're going to be looking at like another Thursday night debacle or Monday night debacle where it's like an awesome 12-9 all field goal sort of situation. I think it's going to be somewhere in between. I feel like it's going to be somewhere between that mid 20s. It might be a race to 24 points or a race to 21 points based on how the game plays out. There's going to be some hiccups, I think, on both sides of the field. Or both sides, both sides of the field. So with the Lions as well as the Packers. So it's going to be a fun game. And I think that anybody that watches, if you're just a fan of football, I think you're in for a great game this week. So it's hard to say which team is going to go. I think it feels like a little bit of a coin flip. But I feel like that this, if it all plays out the way that I think it is, where a little bit of a defensive matchup to start before the training wheels come off and we start seeing more of what these teams can do. I think the Packers might be able to do enough to create a big game in this situation and make it so Jared Goff crumbles under those situations. So I'm going to tell you, even though I would not be surprised if this ends up being a massive shootout, I'm not going to be surprised if the Packers blow out the Lions. I'm not going to be surprised if the Lions blow out the Packers. It's one of those games that's why it's a coin flip, because it can literally be anything. I'm going to go ahead and pick the Packers in this game. And we'll definitely wrap that up when we go through our weekly picks here. We'll recap them, but I think it's going to be a fun game. And if you're a fan of football and you got the day off because it's Thanksgiving, well, I kind of technically do, but I'm Canadian, so it's not Thanksgiving for us. So you're in for a heck of a game, even for all those casual fans that usually don't tune into every single game, and now they have a day off and they're celebrating with family. And maybe your family's a football family, and you guys are going to have the games playing in the background while you guys enjoy each other's company and just have a great Thanksgiving. I think this game is going to be an awesome game, regardless regardless of the outcome. It's a coin flip. It could be either team. I'm not going to lie, but I'm going to pick the Packers here because I think that they might have a slight advantage, even though it's probably non-existent. I don't think any. It could be really well that no team in this game has an advantage. So regardless, that's why I think it's going to be a phenomenal game, and you're in for a treat, guys. Moving on to the 4 o'clock game, if I'm not mistaken, the the Kansas City Chiefs versus the Dallas Cowboys. Another great game. You know what? All three games this week for this year for Thanksgiving are looking to be absolutely loaded and stacked for so many different reasons. It's going to be narratives, it's going to be gameplay, it's literally going to be fireworks. I think every single game has the potential to being an all-time classic because of what we have setting up the in all the teams and how it's going to be set up to play out. Right, we got the Kansas City Chiefs that I've been saying this year is the year that they're going to finally look beatable, that their division is going to be wide open, but we can't forget that they are still wily vets. They have a great coach, one of the best quarterbacks in the league, even though he's not playing to his normal standard. They are still wily and they can steal a game here and there just through situational awareness and crafty decision making by these veterans, a coach, and as well as their players on all three phases of football. Now, when we look at the Dallas Cowboys, we know that the Dallas Cowboys are who they are. They have been the longest, next to the Cleveland Browns, the longest standing dumpster fire that's been going on over the last few years. But the one thing that you can't take away from the Dallas Cowboys this season is their ability to put up points. Their offense is really, really good. And if you allow them to create a shootout, it might be favored on their side because they are really, really good at putting up points. So a great a great dichotomy there between a team that is a wily vet that's a little bit more balanced, even though they're not as consistent as they were before. I don't think they are that invincible threat that they used to be, but I think they are still a solid team that can definitely catch some teams off guard, especially in situational football, something that the Dallas Cowboys just aren't good at times, which is why they've come away with ties this season. They've come away with losses which they should have won. It's just that type of situation when you're dealing with a dumpster fire like that. But I think it's going to be a phenomenal game because I think it comes down to offense versus defense. We got Spagnuolo against and his defense against Dak Prescott and his offense. To an immovable object versus a unstoppable force, right? Coming up against each other. And whenever you have that situation, fireworks are a potential outcome here. So when we look at at the Cowboys, their defense is a little bit more revamped now that they've brought in Quinnen Williams. I know did suffer a little bit of an injury. I'm not sure if he's out this game. Maybe they keep him on a snap count, or I didn't get caught up with that. But their defense was arguably the worst defense in the league, and now they've gone from 32nd to maybe 20th. They have an okay defense now, even though it is still very, very flawed. Can that defense be enough to put it on Patrick Mahomes in that offense? Because Patrick Mahomes in their offense has definitely struggled against good defenses. So what do we expect? Do we expect the what's more likely? The Cowboys defense going in there and totally smothering Patrick Mahomes and making it impossible for him to play like the Denver Broncos defense did? Or are we thinking, or is the Kansas City defense going to be able to keep Dak Prescott in check? Another game that could be fully fireworks. It might be an absolute shootout. Or it could also be a defensive game where both teams are trying to keep it low scoring, and it might be a race to 21, 24 points, something like that. Either way, another potential banger of a game. We got a great franchise with awesome superstars on there in the Kansas City Chiefs, and then you got a team that doesn't like to lay down and always wants to try to find ways to win, even if that affects their draft standing. It doesn't really matter because they traded away most of their draft capital anyways. They're good ones at least. So it's an interesting situation to be in, right? It's going to be a fantastic game. I'm going to go ahead and lean towards good old Steve Spagnuolo. He is wily, he is crafty, and that defense has definitely come alive in the last couple of weeks, trying to prove that they are not the scrubs that a lot of people have been trying to claim they are. I definitely don't think they are. I think they're a good team. They're just not the invincible juggernaut that we're used to seeing. So I'm going to go ahead and hedge my bets on the defense, making it so that they can control and keep Dak Prescott in check. And I'm going to pick the Chiefs in this game, even though I think it's going to be a phenomenal game. Like I said, football fans, casual fans, anyone that's not a fan of these three teams that's going to be watching and tuning in today are in for a heck of a matchup and day of football ahead of them. I'm going to take the Chiefs in this game here. Next, we got the Ravens or the Bengals traveling to Baltimore. So we got the Bengals versus the Ravens. Lamar Jackson versus Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow is coming off of IR and coming back from his turf toe injury. Or ligament tears in his toe. So it's an interesting storyline. And again, this is the type of game that it could literally be fireworks. We could see Joe Burrow go out there and look like he doesn't have an ounce of rust on him and go back to what he does, just throwing a ton of yards and a ton of touchdowns and making it difficult for Lamar Jackson and their offense to kind of keep up with them, even though Lamar Jackson and company can definitely put up a lot of points as well. Now, this is definitely a game that Lamar has to be superstar, so he's going to have to put it all on the line and risk injury, unlike he hasn't had to in past weeks, because it's starting to get to that time where they need to lock in and basically play and use all their strengths and everything in order to complete a postseason run here. So it's an interesting game. I don't think that either defense is arguably great. I think that the Baltimore Ravens defense, although they struggled a lot, is slightly better than the Bengals defense. I know the Bengals defense is without Trey Hendrickson, and overall they're not a good defense either. But they can make some things happen, and in a couple moments here, you might be surprised, but they're just not the defense. They can definitely hold out for an entire game and just be the defensive presence that they need to be in order to keep Lamar Jackson in check. I think it's definitely going to be coming down to a bit of a shootout. Even though I just don't think this is going to turn into a defensive output here. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game for one team or another. There's definitely blowout potential for both sides. We could see Joe Burrow, like I said, go out there and just light them up and get it to the point where they turn the Ravens into a one-dimensional football team and having to put up points and air the ball out, which might lead to the advantage for the Cincinnati Bengals, because we know that the accuracy isn't what one of Lamar's strengths, and his offensive coordinator does a fantastic job of calling plays specific to his strengths and avoiding his weaknesses. But in this situation, it might just be one of the things where we got to throw the kitchen sink out of the window there and just go for broke, because that's what they're going to have to do in order to win. It's going to be an incredible, fun matchup. And man, this is one of two potential upsets that I wanted to pick this week. And I really want to believe in Joe Burrow, but what's more likely? Joe Burrow coming out and looking like the world beater, like he doesn't have any rust and that he's completely in sync with his team and his offense, or he comes out looking really good but is a little bit rusty, and as a result he's just not able to make the big play or come away with enough points in order to beat this Baltimore Ravens team. I just could not gamble in that upset, even though it is prime for potentially being an upset, because Joe Burrow is that good. I just have to pick the Ravens here. They're just in a better position, and injury wise and roster wise. And I just can't gamble against Lamar, plain and simple. There you guys have it. That is the breakdown for the Thanksgiving game. I want to make sure we got through that section really quickly here before the game started to give you guys an idea of how I felt these games. But regardless, these three games are going to be awesome. I feel like every single one of them is going to be showing um, a lot of promise. I think it's going to be a fun game. Let's get to the chat here. Hey, Cole Pants. What is going on, brother? Happy Thanksgiving. I am Canadian, but I still think that it's a happy Thanksgiving regardless. Mr. Eric, New Mexico in the house, Raquel in Florinda. T-Bass in the house. Packers, he makes a good point here. Packers can get healthy in offense and make the playoffs. They're going to be a very dangerous team with that defense potentially. They have to lock in. They have to figure it out. Every single team is facing adversity this year. No real front runners, which is an exciting prospect. If you're just a total NFL fan and you don't have, maybe your team is just one of the bottom dwellers and you just have transitioned into just being a football fan while your team gets it together. This season has been absolutely lights out for you. So if you're in that boat, big ups to you because you're in for an awesome freaking day of games, and it's been an awesome season for you. But yes, if all these teams in the NFC North can figure out and overcome the specific adversity that they are experiencing, they're going to have a fun end to the season and potentially make a decent run for the three teams ahead of my Vikings. I just don't know that even if they win out mathematically, that it's a possibility because we'd need everybody else to fall apart, and I don't want to see that either. I don't want to get the default situations, although it would be nice for my Vikings to win out and have everybody else collapse and see them give our team some more playoff experience as we transition from year one to year two of the JJ McCarthy era. But regardless, I am very happy with my Vikings, and we're definitely going to talk about it here in the next segment where we are transitioning, ladies and gentlemen, from the Thanksgiving games into the next segment here, moving on to, let's talk about our dynamic duo, okay? We got JJ McCarthy, our future franchise quarterback, and Max Brosmer, our future franchise backup quarterback. Let's call him that, okay? This is an interesting situation because for me, I've tried, okay? I have definitely tried to find out if there is a one-to-one comparison for the rising of dynasties, the rising of teams that made playoff runs and won the Super Bowl. I've tried to find situations that match up, and when you look and you compare, there is no team that's exactly alike to each other, which leans to the fundamental truth that there is no team that experiences the same situation, and it is just part of the process. Every single team needs to go through their own unique adversity based on the situations that have come before. I've definitely looked into it. I've seen teams that have definitely injuries have been the adversity, and they'd had to overcome and trade for players at the deadline in order to solidify some semblance of a team before they go on and make a run and end up becoming Super Bowl champions. I've also seen teams where their unique path has been adversity on a whole nother level, where it's maybe outside scrutiny, maybe it's players and their off the field situations that have created a negative cloud over the team during a season, and they've had to overcome and play through that and get to a point where they're able to overcome and make a solid playoff run, like the Baltimore Ravens, for example, with the Ray Lewis situation, and having to overcome just having a basic journeyman quarterback in Trent Dilfer, the only quarterback to ever win a Super Bowl and then get released the following year. So there is no one-to-one. And then we got situations like Tom Brady and the GOAT, where we have an injury that happens to their starter that literally just got signed to be their future franchise guy in Drew Bledsoe, and then having a Mr. Irrelevant last pick of the draft, or a seventh round pick or whatever it was, turn into the greatest player of all time. We've seen every bit of gambit when it comes to what teams need to do in order to become the team that they are destined to become. Now, our team is in a completely unique situation. We have a young franchise quarterback that injuries to start his career have definitely been a factor. Injuries to the O-line definitely made it so that the games that he should have been playing in September, October, he had to be playing in November. It's just a litany of consistent adversity that this team has been engulfed in this entire season. But like I've been saying, the reason why I feel comfortable gambling and picking my Vikings team regularly is because I know that the supporting cast around whoever plays quarterback is always going to give us a chance to stay in these games and potentially steal a win here and there. That is something that we learned based off every bit of experience and adversity that we faced last year. There were games where we started off bad and shot ourselves in the foot and made it look like we were going to be that it was a lost cause, and then all of a sudden we pulled it out the fire. There were games where we started off strong, came up with multiple turnovers, and came up with massive leads, and almost squandered those away. There are games where we got punched in the mouth and we just could not recover and just had overall bad showings. Literally the gambit, a full gambit of experiences last year. But what was consistent is that we faced adversity over and over and over again. It's the reason why this team fights so hard, regardless of who's under center. They fight the same for Carson Wentz as they do for JJ, and I know they're going to do for Max Brosmer this year. And on top of the fact, Max Brosmer needs to get some playing experience, okay? If he's going to be our backup going forward, or whatever the future holds for us, I'm not entirely sure. I'm going to hedge my bets on probabilities here that JJ is going to develop into the franchise quarterback that we need, and Max is going to develop into a standout, probably a guy that teams are going to try to poach from us because he's going to be such a good top quality backup in this league because of what he's going to prove throughout his time as a backup and what he does on the field. And, you know, if this all played out perfectly this year and we had no injuries to the O-line and JJ had his struggles at the beginning of the year and then he started figuring out, and by the end of the season, we were able to put together a great playoff run and sneak into the playoffs at some point, and never allow Max Brosmer to hit the field next year in the season where we have all the expectations and we have the ability to push for a little bit of a deeper playoff run or whatever the case may be. There would be a situation where all of a sudden Max would have to come in. And then because he doesn't have the experience that he is going to get this week, it might end up going bad, or the lack of experience might end up playing against him. So everything happens for a reason. Our path is the path that we have, and we can't shy away from it. This is the team that we decided to go forward with, and I think it is a much better train or bandwagon or whatever you want to call it, or path that we are on, instead of having Sam Darnold or Daniel Jones behind center, knowing that at any point the wheels are going to fall off and we're going to get embarrassed in big games and most likely lose in the playoffs in humiliating fashion. Because guess what? Guess what would have happened if we would have signed Sam, gave him a nice contract for the next 3-4 years, whatever it was, and then he went and had an embarrassing loss? Everybody would be saying, oh, the Vikings made a bad decision. They should have just rolled with their young rookie quarterback back and dealt with the lumps and the growing pains so that he can develop into the guy that he is supposed to become. You can't win when you look at it objectively. So I would much rather not have to go through the heartbreak that the Seattle Seahawks and the Indianapolis Colts are going to go through this year when they realize that their quarterback is definitely still working on things in the postseason that they have to overcome in order to be winners there. I think, like I've been saying all year, Sam Darnold is a good quarterback. I really like him. He is one of my favorite quarterbacks, but I know what he is, and he is not at that level to produce at a high level in big games in the postseason. He's going to be the reason in which we lose games if we still had him. Same with Daniel Jones. The Steelers put it on him, made it so that he had to put the cape on, and what happened? A ton of turnovers and baffling losses this season against the Jags, if I'm not mistaken, and then against the Steelers so far, right? So it's a weird situation to be in, and it's going to suck for them when they get to these big games in the playoffs and everything falls out from underneath them, and they realize that they're kind of stuck and have to move forward and deal with it. All these growing pains. Maybe their franchise, maybe their organization can't handle a humiliating loss in the playoffs. I know our fan base can't handle it. Maybe theirs can, and all the power to them. I hope the best for them. I don't want anything bad to happen to them. I would like for them to just all of a sudden miraculously let go of all the things that has been plaguing them, and all of a sudden become a playoff threat. I just don't see that growth and that potential until I see some of that growth in these big games. And we've already seen the Seattle Seahawks be put into big games, and already Sam starting to struggle and show that he is still a work in progress when it comes to the playoffs. So when just to wrap up, I'm excited to see Max Brosmer have his time in the light and get some experience, because he needs to get that experience. The preseason isn't enough for a backup quarterback to see what it's like to go into real meaningful football and be prepared. This week, I don't know how it's going to go. I think it might be similar to JJ. He's an undrafted rookie. There's going to be growing pains. He's got a great arm. He's got the potential to do a lot of great things, and he's had all the time this season in order to prepare and get himself up to that standard. Now, is it going to be an incredible showing where he looks like, oh my goodness, are we going to get Mike White 2.0, where he comes out the first 2 games of his career just passing for 300 plus yards, multiple touchdowns, and looking like a future franchise quarterback? I don't know. Is he going to come out looking like a rookie and struggling and looking lost at times? Maybe so. It's there's no telling as of right now, but what I am happy to see is that he's going to get onto the field, playing with the ones, playing in meaningful football, so that he can get that experience, because sooner or later he is going to be put in that situation, whether that's next year, the year after, when JJ goes down and has to play the second half of the season, or the second half of a game. Something is going to happen where he is going to be called upon, and it's better that he gets some experience now, and instead of then when we actually are going to have to depend on him. So I'm extremely happy with him starting and getting there. I'm not happy with the overall path that we're on, because I foresaw more of a traditional path where we weren't going to have a bunch of injuries, and we were just going to have to grow through the development together and see week to week growth. It's not always going to go as planned. It's not always going to be a fairy tale. It's not always going to be like it looks in documentaries when teams start this process. Some teams have to go through the fire in order to be forged in it. Okay. And that's just the Minnesota Vikings. That's how it's going to go for JJ. That's how it's going to go for Max. That's going to be how this team becomes a team that can contend in the playoffs, and then eventually contend for Super Bowls. And if we don't have this foundation set, when the playoffs come, that's when we're going to see us crumble or fall apart and have to learn those lessons then. I'd rather us learn these lessons now than have to deal with it in the future. And that's what I think in regards to this dynamic duo that we have in Minnesota. I think they're going to be a great Batman and Robin. I don't know who's going to be emerge as Batman, who's going to emerge as Robin, but we have two young quarterbacks that have a lot of football life left in them and a lot of potential, and the sky's the limit. It is what it is. It's the path that we're on, and it's adversity that we've learned through last year and this year to face, and we're going to continue to do so. And that's why I'm excited for this Minnesota Vikings team, and that's why I'm extremely optimistic and know that this is just the way it goes. Okay, let's move on to weekly picks, ladies and gentlemen. We need to move on to what is going on, Chris. What is going on, Lefty? Moving on to the next segment in today's show, we got our weekly picks. I've already given you our picks, but we'll recap here for Thanksgiving Thursday. I got the Packers over the Lions in a coin flip. It literally could go anyway. Let's be real. I would not be surprised if either team blew out the other team. I would not be surprised if this was a shootout. I don't think it's going to be a defensive output where we got a 12 to 9 or some craziness. I think it's going to be a little bit in the middle. It could be somewhere, both teams scoring in the 20s, and whoever comes out on top at the end, it is what it is. I'm going to take the coin flip and guess that it's going to be the Packers. Moving on to the Cowboys and Chiefs, another game that's a little bit, maybe not so much a coin flip, but I think it's going to be a little bit easier to pick. I think, like I said earlier, I'm going to bank on Spagnuolo, good old Spags, and his defensive prowess, having that defense be able to keep the Cowboys offense in check. I don't think the Cowboys are a good enough team to create this team to become this game to be a shootout. My little husky puppy is going crazy because it's time to go out. Anyways, either way, I'm going to go ahead and lock in the Chiefs in this game. I think that I'm going to bank on Spags and his defense, and then the Chiefs offense being able to do more than enough to steal this win here. Moving on to the Ravens and Bengals. Like I said, this is going to be a fun game here. We got the return of Joe Burrow. I know they don't have T. Higgins in the lineup today. He's going to be missing it. So not having his two dynamic wide receivers is going to be a little bit of a factor there for him. Like I said, what's more likely, that we see a Joe Burrow show up and look like he doesn't have an ounce of rust and he's 1,000% on page with his offense, or he just looks like a pretty good Joe Burrow and he struggles at times, but is able to put a good amount of points on the board. And when we look at everything, I'm just going to have to gamble that as of the way that the teams are, the Ravens do have a stronger roster and they just have a little bit more of an upside here. That's why I'm taking the Ravens, and I just can't gamble against Lamar Jackson in this game. Moving on to our Friday night Black Friday game, we got the Bears versus the Eagles. This is an interesting matchup because whenever the Bears play a good defense, they definitely struggle, and it's going to be a solid defense going up against this Bears offense. So we're going to see another defensive output. I think it's going to be a bit of a snore fest when it comes to offense. I think both teams are definitely going to be not putting up all-time numbers offensively. We know what the struggles that Caleb Williams has against good defenses and teams and good teams in general. And we know that there is a bit of a struggle fest going on in Philadelphia with what is going on there on their offense. But, like I said, this might just be a race to 17 points, 21 points, 24 points. I'm not entirely sure, but I am definitely going to pick defense over offense here. I'm just going to bank on the Philadelphia Eagles really doing more than enough to keep Caleb in check in that offense, and then the Eagles just being able to do just enough like they have in a whole bunch of games this season. They're going to beat them with experience. That's why I'm going to pick the Eagles over the Bears. Moving on to Sunday games, we got the Jaguars versus the Titans. The Titans, man, they definitely were able to put up a bunch of points last week, and it was a little bit of a scare where I thought, I was like, oh my goodness, I'm going to get that one wrong too. Oh, it was a little bit rough, but we still ended up getting 9 picks right last week and tying old Q-Dog at the Real 2 Sports podcast for a joint victory last week. and the weekly pickings, that means I got 2 weeks consecutively with the W. So it's going to be an interesting game. Jacksonville, I think, is, even though they have struggled at times, they are in that rebuild kind of stage, or kind of not rebuild, retooling, or new coach philosophy, kind of adapting that. That's why sometimes they are banging all cylinders, and sometimes they kind of revert to old muscle memory. They're dealing with injuries. It's just one of those situations in which I think the Jaguars are just a little bit more ahead than the Titans, even though I think the Titans might start putting up a little bit of numbers here. I just think that the Jaguars, Trevor Lawrence, and what they got going on is definitely going to be more than what the Titans going on here. So I'm going to take the Jaguars in probably a 7-point win here. I wouldn't be surprised if it was a 10-point win or more, just because of what we've seen from the Titans. Sometimes they play okay. We haven't seen like an all-time game or anything like that, but they can rise to the occasion a little bit here and put some points up when needed. So we'll see how that turns out, but I'm going to go ahead and hedge my bets here with the Jaguars. Moving on to Falcons and Jets in New Jersey there. The Jets home game here. A little bit of an interesting situation. We got an Atlanta Falcons team that is very much like ours, in a different situation where they're not exactly, they're definitely on a roller coaster. They're not exactly what we're going through, totally different adversity, but they are a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde team. They've gone ahead and gone and handed out some surprising wins this season, and then some handed out some losses in some surprising wins this season, but also have looked incredibly bad at the same time. So which team we're going to get is unknown. And then we look at the Jets. They're a bit of a team where they've committed to the rebuild. They've moved on from a bunch of pieces. They've picked up a bunch of draft capital and looking to rebuild through the draft this year and next year. And the following year is definitely going to be, 2027, not 2026, is going to be a stacked draft. So they are in a great position to really turn this franchise around if they make all the draft choices. I think Aaron Glenn is the right choice. I think, given the time, and if they have patience with him, I think he can turn this franchise around, because at times we can see that the potential. It's like you guys remember that scene in 8 Mile where Eminem is kind of just like, here's like little one line here, one line there, and kind of here's the beat, but it's just nowhere close to the final product. I think we're there with the New Jersey Jets. The New York Jets. The New Jersey Jets is basically the same thing. But anyways, and you can only just hear a couple of the notes, and we can see a couple of it. It's like a distant mirage in the future. But when you do see those kind of moments, that singular jigsaw puzzle kind of in place, it kind of gives you some hope, because maybe if they get that quarterback draft right in the next couple of years and they build a solid team around there, that's going to be potentially a fun team going forward in the next 2 to 3 years. So, but that is definitely nowhere near enough for me to gamble against Tyler Algier and Bijan Robinson. That running back duo is definitely going to run some numbers here and keep it so that the Falcons stay on control. So I'm going to go ahead and pick the Falcons over the Jets. Moving on to Rams versus Panthers. The Panthers are a bit of a surprise team this season, and good for them. Hey, it looks really, really good to see sometimes a little bit of hope for a struggling team. And, the Bryce Young rebuild is starting to take form. We saw his career game a couple weeks back, throwing for over 400 yards and a bunch of touchdowns, and making us remember why he was taken first overall and the potential and the ceiling that this kid has. Now, they're still a long ways away from becoming a very consistent team where they can become a playoff team and then progress further. But I like what I'm seeing from the Carolina Panthers. But unfortunately, it's just not enough to overcome Sean McVay, a Matthew Stafford that's having probably the best season of his career when it all ends. He might even win the MVP here, the way that it's going here. Let's be real. It's going to be a fun game. I think the Panthers are going to give them a run for their money. I think they're going to put up a good amount of points, but I feel like Sean McVay and his tricky play calling and his ability to play situational football and adjust on the fly is just going to be the deciding factor here. I can see him going into the jumbo package, the triple tight end situation. I can see him switching back to the Puka Nacua, Cooper Cup offense. His ability transition is just going to be too much for what these Carolina Panthers have to offer. So I'm going to take the Rams in a pretty decent win here. I'm going to say 7 points. Let's frackin' go. And so moving on to Cardinals, Buccaneers. Good Lord. Let me get a hold of this chat. Sorry, guys. There we go. Anyway, so there we go. So now moving on from to Saints, Dolphins. Yeah, because Rams, Panthers, now Saints, Dolphins. Now, two teams that are, struggling to get out of the basement. They've shown some good things, some upside. But they've also put a lot of inconsistency on film. Two inconsistent teams going at each other is going to be potentially a really fun game, and it could also be potentially a really, really ugly game. Now, the one thing that I will say that the Dolphins has definitely showed a little bit more potential and more consistency when it comes to their run game or through to their offense. So with that being said, I'm going to just have to gamble here and pick the Dolphins over the Saints, even though it could very much well be a situation where it just becomes a really competitive game and the Saints come away with it. I'm excited to see this game and see what these two franchises look like when they're facing an evenly matched organization. That's when we might see some potential, some of that future ceiling start to show, especially going forward. So I'm going to take the Dolphins in a 3-point game. Let's give them a 3-point game. Moving on to Cardinals versus Buccaneers. We got the Buccaneers at home against the Cardinals. Now, the Cardinals definitely show a little bit more life now that they're playing behind Jacoby Brissett. He gives them a veteran presence and an ability to stay more consistent and looking at making the plays that they need in order to try to win the game, unlike Kyler, where he's always looking to be the reason that they win the game. And we know that the Kyler Murray experience is most likely over after this season. They're probably going to move on from him and look to either bring in one of these potential guys like maybe a Mac Jones or someone that's looking like they're resurging, a reclamation project, if you will. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens to the Cardinals going forward as they commit to another rebuild or at the very least a retooling. But the Buccaneers, although they've struggled over the last few games, I still think that they're a really good team. Their defense is still pretty good. The chips haven't fallen the way that they could have for them. And because of their opponents here, I think it's going to be a close game, but I still think that the Buccaneers come away with the win here. They're becoming healthier and they're poised to make a nice little playoff run to finish the season. So I'm going to take the Buccaneers over the Cardinals. Moving on to 49ers versus the Browns. Now, the Browns are a little bit revitalized here, coming away with a nice win last week. Against the Raiders, and it is what it is. You know what I mean? And the jury is still out on Shador. Like I've been saying, I kind of, I want to root for the kid. And I want only the best. I want him to be able to have all the opportunity in order to prove one way or another if he is a starting quarterback or if he is a bust. I want him to get the actual opportunity. And like I've been saying, I don't think he's going to get that with the Browns. I think they're going to definitely move on from him regardless of what happens the rest of the way with him. It's just, they just don't believe on him unless they decide to just, the front office decides to believe in him and they move on from Stefanski and whatnot. It's going to take a coach that believes in him and gives him the full opportunity to run with it. They're going up against the 49ers, a team that has been mired with injuries and faced adversity over adversity, especially over the last few years. And they're a team that knows how to face adversity and win in those situations. Now, I think it's gonna be a decent little game here, but I'm gonna have to go with a better team here in the 49ers beating the Browns in Cleveland. Moving on to Texans versus Colts. Here's an interesting game because the Texans are definitely fighting for their playoff hopes here. And if they can go ahead and beat the Colts here, it's a divisional matchup, so those games are a lot closer than people will give credit to. But this is one of the teams that has been a little bit suspect, you can say. It was hard for me to give them the benefit of the doubt for the beginning of the season, and then when I did give them the benefit of the doubt, they started losing games in really bad fashion. So interesting matchup. Now it's going to be a defense versus offense type game. Can Jonathan Taylor go ahead and take control and make it so that he is a factor? Because if they take him out of this game, this defense can definitely make Daniel Jones play and kind of show what the Steelers showed here. It's a close one. I think probabilities lie here with the Colts, that they are most likely to win, but I feel like this is definitely an upset alert situation, and I'm going to have to gamble. I haven't taken any swings, and this is the one I'm going to call an upset here for the Texans. I think their defense is definitely going to do more than enough to hold the running game in check and force Daniel Jones to have to put on the cape, and we know that he can't do that, and when he tries, it just does not go the way that people want it to go. So I'm going to pick the upset here with the Texans over the Colts, even though probabilities slightly favor the Colts. Moving on to Vikings Seahawks is going to be an interesting game. The backup coming up against the Reclamation Project. We got an absolute undrafted rookie going the UDFA going against the Reclamation Project in his first start. It's going to be a heck of a tall task for the young man. But I know that this team rallies. This team can definitely fight, and we know how really well what the weaknesses of Sam Darnold are. So it just becomes a bit of a chess match. Who's going to come out on top? I think that our Vikings team is definitely able to stick with everyone and potentially give us an opportunity to win. I know that the probabilities lie with the Seattle Seahawks, and that's most likely who the winner is going to be. But I have to gamble with my Minnesota Vikings. This is definitely a pick from the heart, not a pick through probabilities, because if I was going to go through probabilities, I would pick the Seahawks here. But that gives me two upset picks for the week. Everything else is going with probabilities. So I am going to pick the Vikings here, even though it's an improbable, unlikely situation that they win. I just think that we do a great job of sticking in games and making it close. And then hopefully the Brosmer can pull out an unlikely victory. Although I will admit that I know that it's most likely that the Seahawks are going to win. And so the Seahawks are rolling, and they are definitely a really good team. JSN, I think, is probably the best player in the league right now, especially this season. If it wasn't for him, I don't think that Sam Darnold would be having as good of a season as he is. I know Sam Darnold is a great regular season quarterback. Now, can we make this game a playoff-like game, a big game for Sam, so that he starts seeing ghosts and start getting in his head like he did in previous weeks here, like against the Rams, where he threw a bunch of interceptions? It's up in the air. Most likely not. I think that he does a really good job, and they probably come away with the win here. But I am going to gamble and pick the Vikings over the Seahawks. Moving on to Bills versus Steelers. This is a nice little fun game because we got two teams that are definitely struggling and having some issues on both sides of the ball here. Their offense sometimes looks really good for both teams, and sometimes their defense looks really decent, and sometimes they look really bad as well. So a coin flip of a game. But when we go and look at it, what's more likely? The Bills' offense looks more like the prolific offense that we've seen, or the Steelers' defense, uh, old man defense, looking like they could potentially be on paper. I think it's going to be. I don't think it's going to be either option. I don't know if I don't think either team's going to look all worldly when it comes to the Bills and their offense and the Steelers and their defense being all time either. I think it's going to be a bit of a back and forth. I think it's going to be a grind out. I think it's going to be a very, very good game. The probabilities I think are lie a little bit more so on the Bills. I'm just going to have to gamble here and hitch my wagon on Josh Allen. The man has the ability to put on the cape, even though it doesn't always work out the way that he wants to. He can definitely do a lot, and I think that defense against the Steelers is going to have to face too big of an obstacle there for them. So I am going to pick the Bills in a really close game, a one-score game. It's going to be a fun one. I think that's definitely one of those games this week that you do not want to miss. Moving on to the Raiders versus Chargers. Now, two teams that are on two opposite sides of the spectrum, but dealing with a whole bunch of injuries in on the O-line. Both of them are missing their star tackles. Joe Alt is out for the season. Same with the I forget the Raiders star tackle. Star tackle for the Raiders, but it's going to be a fun game because when I thought that the Chargers were going to struggle a little bit here, they came out and looked really, really, really good, and then the following week they fell back down to earth. So, like I was saying, and I kind of predicted that week is like it's the way the rest of the season for the Chargers is going to go is based on how good their tackle that they brought in to replace Joe Alt plays the rest of the season. Last year, we had the similar situation where Cam Robinson came in relief for Christian Darrisaw, and he had some really good games. He had some bad games. He had some mediocre games. And he had some okay games. And he's going to have the exact same situation happen in Los Angeles for these Chargers. Now, is this game going to be one of those games where he's all time and he does more than enough in order to secure a victory? Or is it going to be one of those games where he has a middle of the pack, a good showing, which allows him to play really good football, and Justin Herbert to allow him to play really, really good football. Now, overall, and then when we look at the Raiders, they have a lot of potential. Okay, I really like the Raiders because of the potential that I see. I know they haven't been able to put it together. I know injuries at their O-line has been a massive factor here, but I see the light in the distance for this team. Now, is that enough to gamble on the Raiders over the Chargers? Absolutely not. Just like with the Jets, I see the light of the tunnel there too, but it's just not enough right now this week to go against this Chargers team. I think the Chargers just have an overall better team in comparison, and I think they'll be able to come away with a decent win, maybe a 21-14, 21-12, something along those lines. That's why I'm going to pick the Chargers over the Raiders. Moving on to Broncos versus Commanders in Washington. Hey, sorry about that, guys. My dogs are going crazy. Anyways, moving on to Broncos versus Commanders. Definitely a game where this one is definitely going to be easy to pick. Hey, stop it. Here, let me show you guys the monster that is making all. She's a Husky Shepherd mix. She's got a Shepherd coloring, but you need to settle down, sweetheart. I know you got the zoomies. You got to relax, okay? Go play. Anyways, enough of a puppy break here for us, but moving on to Broncos Commanders, that defense is legit, is one of the best defense, if not the best defense in the league, and it's going to be a fun game defensively. If you're into that, I think the Commanders are going to shock some people in the amount of points that they put up and the fight that they give the Broncos. But I still think the Broncos are going to be able to do more than enough to win this game. That's why I'm going to take the Broncos in a 10-point game. Let's give them a 10-point game, maybe 31-21, something like that. We're going to be surprised at what the Commanders can pull off, despite what the injuries and everything that they're dealing with right now. Moving on to Monday Night Football, the last game of the week. The Giants versus the Patriots. Now, it's no secret that I really like the Giants. I think they're another team just like the Jets, just like the Raiders, that have a ton of potential. They're just a little bit further down the line than the Jets as well as the Raiders. They're starting to build a little bit of consistency, and I think that, like I said in the offseason, I think they needed to move on from Brian Dable and bring somebody else in because that's the thing that they're missing. I think a good coach and leader, a guy that brings in all the right philosophy and structure that they need in order to start putting their potential to good use. Now, they've been the team that I've been using for upsets because they have that potential. That defense is really sneaky. If that interior pass rush and their linebackers tee off, it's going to be a bad day for your offense. They can definitely do that. They've been in games with a lot of teams this season. They just don't have the ability to overcome that adversity like the 49ers do. A few weeks back, I when I broke down 49ers versus Giants, I said this is basically going to be a mirror reflection of each other. Both teams are going to face adversity. They're both are facing injuries and all that jazz. It's just the 49ers are going to beat them with experience here, and because they have the ability to overcome adversity, and they've been showing it game after game this season. Now, the Patriots are going to, I think they're just going to be a little bit too much for the Giants this week. This is why I'm not going to gamble with the Giants this week. That's why I am picking the Patriots, and why I think they're going to be the team that's left standing. I think they're going to be able to put up a decent amount of points, and as a result, they're going to come away with something like a 27-17 win, something like that, 27-24 if the Giants make a real good game out of it. But nonetheless, I'm going to pick the Patriots here, and I would not be surprised if the Patriots come away with a blowout here because they are that dynamic on offense. Drake May has arrived. He no sophomore slump for him. Maybe that comes next year as this tape that he's put out on the season gets let out and everybody starts game planning for him in the offseason. I just don't think so. I think that that Vrabel, Josh McDaniels are definitely going to do a great job of limiting that factor next year. And I think he's going to have a very productive year 3 and continue to be a top tier quarterback in this NFL. And there you have it, guys. Those are my weekly picks for this week 13. All right, guys. So now let's move on and let us go ahead and move on to it's time for power rankings, guys. Let's get at it. We do got to do our live calculation, and we made it to the last segment of the show. Let's get at it, guys. Power rankings. Let's move the tier list to the screen, and there you have it. This is where we left off last week with the LA Rams at number 1, the Patriots at number 2, the Seahawks at 3, Eagles at 4, the Colts at 5, the Lions at 6, the Bills at 7, the Broncos at 8, the Bears at 9, the Steelers at 10, the Bucks and the San Francisco 49ers looking out on the way in. Let me pull up. I need to pull up some numbers here. Let's see here. Pull up week 12 games. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. So let's look at some teams that need to be recalculated outright. We're going to say the Steelers. We're going to say the Buccaneers. Full-on recalculation, Green Bay. Let's look at these teams right here. But first and foremost, let's reorganize these accordingly. Again, I'm going to keep these two teams together. These top 3 teams, I think it's going to be a bit of a push here for me. I can't justify, even though I will always say these top 3 spots are always one of the 3 spots where anyone could give you an accurate or a good argument for why the Seahawks should be first, the Patriots or the Rams, and it'll make sense. That's why these top three spots are basically interchangeable, in my opinion. So, right now, as it stands in my books, I think the Rams are definitely the team, the best team in the league right now, followed by the Patriots and then the Seahawks. Then we have the next three teams here. Very, very interesting because we got um, the Eagles and the Colts and the Lions, all teams that I've been saying are flawed, which I can't justify putting them in the top, one of the top three teams. And again, you can argue that these three teams could be four. Any one of these three teams could be number four, and vice versa. But based on what happened last week, I know we can move. Um, We're going to give the benefit of the doubt. Let me see here. Let's see here. Hold on a second here, guys. I want to look at one thing really, really quickly. Yeah, we're gonna do it this way because the Lions, out of these two teams, won their last week matchup, and I still think that these two teams, based on what we've seen and probability's sake, are probably better than the bottom half of these teams. The next thing that I'm gonna have to do is I'm gonna move up the Bears one, and I'm gonna move the Broncos up another one here. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 respectively. 9 for the Bills. And then we're going to give the benefit of the doubt, and we're going to put San Fran there, but we're also going to bring the Packers there outside looking in because I still have to see a little bit more. But I think you could argue easily the Packers could literally replace any one of these 7, 8, 9, 10 teams here. And I think the same can be said. Let me see where we're at. Let me see where we're at. Let me see where we're at. Or is it 6 and 5 versus 6 and 5, if I'm not mistaken? Yeah. Steelers, where are the Steelers falling right now? 6 and 5. That's another team that could potentially go up there. So we got a little bit of a dealer's choice here. The final spot in the top 12 can easily go to any one of these three teams here. Because of their pedigree, I'm going to give it to the Chiefs, and then I'm going to put the Ravens, Steelers, Chargers, then Buccaneers. Let's do that. There we go. So there you guys have it there. We have our power rankings all sorted out here. We got the LA Rams at 1, Chiefs at 2, Seahawks at 3, Lions at 4, Colts at 5, the Eagles at 6, Broncos at 7, Chicago Bears at 8, the Buffalo Bills at 9, the San Francisco 49ers at 10. Then we got Green Bay at 11 and Kansas City at 12. Now you might be thinking, wait a second, the Broncos have the best record in the league. Why not the Broncos at 1? Because let's be real, guys. Although their defense is championship caliber, they are not the offensive team that the rest of these teams are. Now, if you put them against one of these high-scoring teams, are you confident that the Broncos can shut that offense down enough for Bo Nix to work through his struggles of the game and come away with a comeback win? I just don't see him being able to pull off that magic against top teams in the league. Maybe, you know what? Let's give him a little bit. Let's do this. Actually, let's bring him to 6 because they did beat the Eagles, and the Eagles are a little bit more flawed than the Broncos. But I still think that as great of a narrative it is as the Broncos are, they I think we're going to find out here at the end of the season where they truly lie. And I feel like it's going to land here on the bottom half of the top 10. I think they're still a good team, but they just don't have the things that the top tier of the NFL has right now. And there you guys have it. There it is. We got all our segments done here for the day, and giving you guys another another live for you guys to catch up. And maybe I think we're going to do a play-by-play of one of the three games here. I just don't know which game. I was thinking Lions, Packers, but now that we've gone a little bit too deep into it, I don't think we can do that one. It might be the Bengals and the Bengals Ravens game, because I really like both quarterbacks and I think it's going to be a fun game. It's going to be fun to call. So maybe we'll pencil that one in. So stay tuned, because we're going to do our first ever play-by-play live, giving you guys the scoreboard, all that fun stuff, trying to give you guys a good play-by-play and some color commentary to boot. Thank you so much for joining me on today's live on the Purple and Gold Bars Show. I am your host, Supreme Overlord, aka Mr. AI Man 3000, aka Mr. Purple and Gold Bars, at your service, guys. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe, and I will see you guys on the next one.